Welcome, citizens of Gotham and Bloodhaven and all the outlying territories of Tricorner and the boroughs of Gotham City. Welcome to I Am the Night, episode 82 and episode 3 of season 3. This one's called Cold Comfort. Who do you think the villain is, Adam?
Firefly.
Gotta be.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Couldn't agree more.
Has to be.
Interesting one, because it's a new writer to the show, but Hilary J. Bader is no stranger to Batman the Animated Series in comic form. The comic we were talking about last week,
of course,
introducing Nightwing, was written by the self-same lady, and she, well, I'll see what you think of her as a writer after while we talk about this show, and it's directed by old mainstay Dan Reber. So, enough from me, Adam. Cold Comfort, your immediate thoughts on this episode?
It was a very strong character-led episode by our titular villain, Mr. Freeze. I think he's at his worst, at his most sinister. I think his acts of evil in this episode actually bothered me in a kind of a personal way, but we still got the same levels of heroics that we'd expect from the Batman family and real tests to what the Bat family have to do to try and keep each other safe and their best to try and help / defeat this villain.
This was definitely Freeze at his most chilling, pardon the pun. He was scary. I mean, from the get-go, the way he targets not you, but what you love. So you're left, I guess, in his mind, feeling a semblance of what he feels, even though he says he feels nothing. He clearly feels something, because it's shocking the things he does and the things he destroys. I mean, art for a start, with two people like us, that's a real blow, isn't it?
The art and the history that he targets is stuff that's unique and ancient and irreplaceable, and he just, obviously going through it without any care or mercy, he wouldn't have any care or mercy when destroying that stuff, but just the fact that was destroyed, it really bothered me, just personally. And then going after the people that matter, certain people like Bruce Wayne and the like, it really hit home, just showed the lack of remorse and care, just all of the things that the character's been through, but it doesn't justify doing those things.
Absolutely. I mean, let's set the scene for our listeners and viewers. At the beginning of this episode, we find out that at some point in the years since the original series and this new series, Nora's been cured, but Freeze has found out that he is beyond saving. The freezing conditions of what turned him into Mr. Freeze in the first place have damaged his body beyond repair, and that's why he let Nora go. But because he had to let go of the one thing that kept him going for all those years when he became Mr. Freeze, he decided to take his revenge on Gothamites by taking everything they love. And the first thing he destroys is a beautifully restored skeleton of a dinosaur, as uncovered by Dr. Margaret Madsen, and we'll talk about the cast later on in the episode, and a woman's life's work destroyed with an ice gun. I mean, like you said, horrible.
It's definitely a hard-pressed thing. I was thinking about it as a loss to the fossil record and just as a piece of history, because I don't know how much people know about the science, but I know quite a bit about the science of fossilization just because it's an interest of mine. I've always loved dinosaurs and paleontology, and for things to fossilize, it's actually very unlikely. It's very rare for things to fossilize. That's why we know that there's several millions and millions of species that have existed in prehistory that we will never ever know about. So finding any kind of fossil that gives an indication of that is miraculous, and one that complete even more so. So getting rid of that is a huge loss to science and paleontology and this woman's career. So very sinister act of evil there.
And then the second target, every bit as tragic. The artist Giuseppe Bianchi, his final piece, retiring, years of his work. And again, even it's another thing that blows my mind. It's a piece of art, but it actually looks like a piece of art separate and above the piece of art that we're looking at in this animated series. It literally stands out as completely other from the animated show we're watching. And that's another brilliant touch. And again, Freeze destroys it, and he says, "I'll never be able to paint another." Cold. Sorry,
cold.
Again, yeah.
No, it works because it's that kind of cold coming back. So yeah, it balances out. But Yeah, again, as a piece of art, it was stunning. It was very Art Deco, very abstract, sort of out there, sort of cityscape where everything was sort of like Picasso-esque, where nothing was, all of the angles were all over the place, very 30s and 40s. But also because of the color scheme of like the reds and blacks was very reminiscent of the actual Batman the Animated Series art style, so we could recognize it right away. So yeah, shame to see it go, really.
Striking difference from the Freeze we've known, but still played. I mean, Michael Ansara's Mr. Freeze, for me, as iconic, as historic as Kevin Conroy's Batman and Mark Hamill's Joker, to me, the best Freeze ever captured. Ever.
I'd agree with that. I'd agree with that. It's just the level of robotic with a person on the inside, but the lack of emotion that's different from just being robotic. It's just that there's no feelings there. It's just a lot of internet talk is about people joke about being head empty, where it's just like you space out and you don't think about too much. I'd say Mr. Freeze is sort of heart empty. He's just very cold and logical and straight down the middle and doesn't feel for anything as the result of his condition, as the result of the loss and the trauma he's been through.
Absolutely. And what's brilliant again with this iteration of Freeze is his three henchwomen, the Ice Maidens. That was a lovely little touch, and all three of them different, all three of them as cold and as deadly as he is. I mean, prepared to shoot everyone, slice them to shreds with super sharp shards of ice, or freeze them until their blood runs cold. Great introduction to characters, I thought.
Yeah, very unique look. Very noticeable, and one that and some hired help that Freeze would definitely need to rely on. Given the cold nature, I don't know if they necessarily wear such like skimpy short skirts and have legs everywhere, but I'm willing to forgive that for the teenage boys viewing. But yeah, no, the sidekicks and the henchmen to the villains are just as important as the villains themselves. Gives them gravitas and gives them a point of command.
Absolutely. And of course, we get a couple of other classic characters. Mayor Hamilton Hill, again played by Lloyd Buckner, and obviously the legendary Bob Hastings as Commissioner Gordon. But I want to talk about some of the side characters. I mean, obviously, Dr. Madsen herself, and again, we'll talk about the cast later, and the person interviewing her at the beginning of the episode. Yeah, I'm glad, because I didn't know how much I destroyed your mind already with random and obscure, lesser-known DC characters. I mean, you know who Jack Ryder is.
Well, Jack Ryder at present is still a correspondent for Gotham City News. Yeah. But he, from what I understand, please correct me, as I'm sure you will, he's one of the few people to not be completely destroyed by Joker's gas, and despite that, still comes out as a little bit unhinged, but uses it as an extended second or third cousin of the Bat family as the Creeper.
Spot on, exactly right. One of the few people to survive a Joker attack, and while he's driven bonkers, it's almost like a side Two-Face, the way the Creeper acts, but heroic in a maniacal way. Partnered up with wonderful characters like who else is crazy but brilliant? Plastic Man, that era of Bronze Age, wonderful characterization. Yes, and when I tell you, well, actually, when we talk about the casting, that this is a bit part. He has what, 3 or 4 lines at most at the beginning of the episode. Who they've cast leads me to believe this character has to come back, and maybe we will see. Can we meet the Creeper in Brave and the Bold? Am I right?
We meet every side character in DC in the Brave and the Bold.
Yeah, the fact that they've cast who they cast as Jack Ryder leads me to believe I think we might see the Creeper before this season's out, and I really hope so, because this guy is voice acting royalty.
I hope so.
Oh, I really do hope so. Now, Freeze himself. Now, I've said he's destroyed a priceless dinosaur fossil that's been restored, and a priceless painting. But when he goes after Bruce Wayne, what he goes after is even more evil. He targets our boy Alfred, and when he's confronted by Batman and Batgirl and Robin, he lets Batman go to aim to kill Batgirl and Robin rather than Batman himself, to take from Batman what he loves, what he cares about. This MO is truly terrifying.
It really is, because as we learn, we didn't know what we knew as we explained it right from the beginning of the episode. We're told eventually that Nora recovered, Nora moved on, found another man, left Gotham, all of that stuff. So effectively, Freeze is a person with no emotion, but the only moral compass he did have is gone. So he truly has nothing to lose now. So he's very willing to just destroy wantonly, because that will be the closest thing to making up the loss that he's felt. So yeah, the loss is real enough to perpetrate that, but still seeing it actually play out, just like the wanton destruction of irreplaceable things, and to just attack people just because you can. There's truly something sinister there, because we've seen the Freeze from the beginning. We've seen Freeze from the first few episodes of season 1, and Batman had the very strong intent of actually like helping him recover and find using Wayne Tech's science to develop it. And even Bruce Wayne says so in that confrontation. But yeah, this Freeze is beyond. It's sad to say beyond saving, but maybe beyond saving.
Absolutely, and his ultimate metamorphosis during the course of the episode. I mean, we get a glimpse of it, and again, the storytelling in this episode is absolutely wonderful. Where the freeze gun gets turned on him, and he's frozen solid to the back of a wall, and you think that's it. He's never going to get out of it, because he's never shown any real superhuman abilities. Yes, he's had this armor that makes him a bit tougher, but then he cracks through the solid ice like with the strength of like a superhuman, and we're thinking, whoa. That's not the Freeze I know. What's happening here? And of course, what we discover is that his body isn't just weathered and ravaged beyond saving. He no longer has one. He's literally like something out of a 50s horror movie, a head in a jar. And it's really unnerving, especially for a family show.
Yeah, I'd say it is. I was willing to sort of dismiss it. I thought that maybe there was enough robotic enhancement in his freezing suit that maybe he was strong enough to break out his own ice. And I'd also assumed that like there may be some resistance to his own ice, because that's the technology it runs on. So yeah, when he did that bust out of the ice thing, it was pretty expected. But for him to just be like a head on life support walking around on detached robotic legs, it is very sinister. It's very just like a very weird science fiction villain that doesn't feel out of left place for a show like this. It just feels very other and weird and creepy, that it's a surprise to see. But it just shows how far gone he is, and the actual lack of humanity that Freeze still has. He's just the thinking parts. He doesn't have a heart or a body anymore to feel with.
Well said. And I've got to talk about the animation and that reveal, because you don't see it straight away. It's not just in your face that this head in a jar is walking around on spider legs. It's done from shadows, and he comes from around a corner, and it's brilliant. I mean, it's like Terminator 1, the thriller level tension building. It's like the slow reveal, and it's brilliantly done.
Yeah, it's a real unexpected shock of just something popping up that you'd never expect that kind of visual, because we're so used to the visuals of the silhouette of the domed head and the strong, stocky armor that's what we assume Mr. Freeze to be. But I think it sort of reminds me of the walkers from War of the Worlds, that vision of otherworldly fear. That's what it reminds. Yeah, that's what it makes me think of. Because I imagine in the future, if Mr. Freeze commits to this, he just makes the limbs a little bit stronger so that they can stand up to a battle with Batman, and just mounts the freeze gun as a little turret under his head, so he doesn't need to have the humanoid form anymore, and he becomes more and more otherworldly and less human the more he just wantonly commits to his madness.
Yeah, I think that's the way it's going to happen as well. Almost more like a Freeze Dalek than human being. It's unreal. Now, we've talked about the villain and his transformation, but I've got to talk as well about Batman, and he has hardened physically in his regime on his sidekicks since Dick Grayson moved out. I mean, that training he's putting Batgirl through, that's pretty brutal, right?
Yeah, I was going to say that the training montage that Batgirl was going through seemed pretty tough. It seemed like very extreme, not like boot camp extreme. It seemed like very intensive and very all up in it, that just like it requires your consistent attention. Like it's a Jedi school level, you will be put through your paces, which makes me believe that this is a Bruce that is recovered from Jason Todd, so that like if he's going to train up any kids, any members of the
Exactly.
any members of the Bat family, they've got to be the very best of the best. So they've got to go through their paces constantly. Anything less than that would just get them in trouble, like Jason was. Obviously, of course, this isn't the case. We know that that's not the case for this show. There's no real Red Hood analog here, but that's what I feel looking on this as a viewer. So, yeah, it's a very surprising thing to see the training so intense, but it's not out of place. But it's just like, wow, okay, that is like intense training.
See, I actually agree and disagree with you. I do agree that that is the reason why, but I do think it is because he lost Jason, and because we do meet Jason later. Comic sequels, this is a perfect example showing us that perhaps it did happen. And that's why, as you say, I mean, I think what you said is perfect. That's why he's being as hard on Tim and on Barbara as he is, because A, he nearly lost Dick, and B, he did lose Jason. So I actually think that you're spot on with that, and I do think that's the reason. But in terms of Batman's character, yes, harsh, but I think he's doing it for the right reasons to save these kids' lives, because he's ultimately responsible and he's lost one he does not want to lose anymore. And that is both unnerving in how harsh he is on them, but also like actually that just shows how much he loves them.
Yeah, the tough love, sort of like wanting them to be their very best deal, makes a lot of sense. So, yeah, we can only hope that this kind of training actually works and makes them as strong as they need to be and doesn't just drive them away, because there's always that possibility as well. That's what happened to Dick, I would say.
Absolutely, absolutely. And now another character moment. And again, we sung his praises last week, but Ephraim Zimbalist Jr.'s Alfred in this episode, for considering he's almost killed, the fact that he finally, after how many years, gets to put his feet up and spend his time in a nice hot bath, and he puts Tim through his paces with the tea and what he wants and how to be looked after. And I think, honestly, Alfred, it's about damn time. Good for
No,
you, sir.
I support that. Alfred definitely deserves a little me time. Sure, it's there as like a sort of Star Wars-esque banter tank to try and like bring his internal body temperature up, but the chance to pamper yourself and just sort of recover a little bit, yeah, he definitely deserves it. Makes me think of the little repartee between Christian Bale's Batman and Michael Caine's Alfred. Of just like, I trust you don't have me followed on my days off. If you ever took one, I might. That's always been a consistent thing for Alfred.
Yes.
No, but that's just my thing. That just fuels my thinking.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Like Alfred's so diligent that he doesn't rest. He's always at the help of maintaining the Wayne household and at Bruce's need. That why would he ever bother taking a day off? It's not a job anymore for him. It's his life. So yeah, that whatever chance he can get to relax a little bit, even if it's for him recovering from something bad happening to him, sure, more power to him.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, I've got a lot to say about the voice casting, even with the bit parts of the Ice Maidens. So I'm going to go and slightly shake things up in case of the order of this episode for now, and we're going to go straight to your main takeaways, good, bad, or ugly, from Cold Comfort, because there's some real talent coming, even for the tiniest of parts in this episode. So, Cold Comfort, let me know what you think.
Well, this is just me doing my literature graduate thing of taking like a very small little, almost throwaway line of dialogue, and then expanding the ever-loving juice out of it. The moment when Mr. Freeze watches the news and sees Bruce Wayne donating that check of $1 million to some charitable foundation, Bruce Wayne says, it reminds me of what my father used to say, those who have the most should give the most. And that just really summarizes Bruce's entire thought process.
Absolutely. And he's not just talking about money. Yeah.
I know he's not talking about money. Because that just summarizes his entire way of thinking. Because physically, in terms of like how capable he is as a human being, he is among the most. He is a genius level intellect, highly proficient in a number of skills and genetically, physically gifted, so that he could be any kind of scientist, any kind of logician, but also any kind of athlete or sports person. But he's choosing to put all of that into being a crime fighter. He has the most, and he knows that. I think at any point during his training, if he thought he wasn't up to the standard that he thought that Gotham needed, he probably wouldn't go as far as he would to become Batman. He probably would have become like somewhere in the FBI, some sort of federal agent with a stricter code than what would necessarily be injustice. But the fact that he's strong enough to be Batman, knows that he is a bit above most other people. That's why he does continually do what he does. He has the most, so he gives the most, and he applies that ethos into Bruce Wayne's charity work as well. And the Bruce Wayne charity work that he says to Freeze in this very episode about needing to give back and help Nora recover from her condition. He lives by his ethos, and he puts that in the forward of every action he does. And that's a character that I think is why he's persisted so long. That mentality, whether it's made overt or not, is inspiring and is motivating, and it's something that a lot of people could and should live up to more.
Well said. That literally is his entire persona in one line of dialogue.
Yeah.
And it's masterfully done. I'm really glad you brought that up, because that was one of my main takeaways from the episode as well, that line. But I think you said it way better than I could. That was brilliant. The other thing I wanted to touch on in my takeaways from the show was, because we've mentioned how perhaps harsh Bruce is being with Tim and with Barbara, but at the end of the episode, when he goes to chase Freeze, he has no hesitation in leaving Barbara to defend herself against both the Ice Maidens with weaponry. I mean, super weaponry which could destroy her, and has already almost killed Alfred. That level of trust, again, I think it's something he's learned since losing Dick Grayson, because I don't think he would have done it. He would have stayed to fight alongside Dick, but he's got this faith now in Barbara that he says, right, yeah, she can hold her own against two supervillains. I've got to go stop Freeze. And that again shows a progression and a character development. Again, we don't see in a lot of mainstream TV, and yet here it is in Batman the Animated Series.
We're treated in this show, we're treated constantly by the quality of the show and the way that they handle these characters. They're truly a cut above the rest, and like, as long as they're this well handled, I can see stories being told about this particular Bat family forever.
Yeah. So your thoughts then on Hilary J. Bader's first animated episode as writer? Because I love her work in the comics, and I think stellar.
Yeah, I agree. Honestly, very strong. Clearly, they have a long experience of writing Batman in the past, so as long as they're able to keep that level of care and attention, then yeah, I know that they'll be able to do a good job in the future.
Brilliant. Right, so let's do this thing. So I want to see your face again. Once again, I love dropping these bombs on you when I do my research on the cast. Now, we're going to start from the Ice Maidens. Now, there were originally 3. Only 2 of them are credited. And in my research and speaking to fellow fans, we're of a mind that Ice Maiden 1 is actually Tara Strong pulling double duty.
Probably.
Which wouldn't surprise me in the slightest, because that's just Tara. I mean, it could be wrong. If anyone out there does know who plays Ice Maiden 1, do let us know. But Ice Maidens 2 and 3. Now, Ice Maiden 2's Cree Sumner. Susie in Rugrats. Elmira in... oh, blimey, I can't even read my own writing now. Or Winnie in a Different World. Elmira in JJ... Yeah, I forget also. Anyway, Penny in Inspector Gadget. She's been in the Care Bears movie, the Ewoks animated series.
Oh.
And Kida in the Atlantis Disney movie.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Wow, I loved that movie when I was a kid.
And Lauren Tom, Samurai Jack, Futurama, Justice League Unlimited. This actress, I adore her. She's both Jinx and Gizmo in Teen Titans and Teen Titans Go. She's Dana, Terry McGinnis's girlfriend in Batman Beyond.
Oh, brilliant.
But this is a bit where I'm going to blow your mind. She is Kevin Tran's mum, Mrs. Tran in Supernatural.
Oh, wow. But you know that also means that she's Julie from Friends.
Yes, she's Julie from Friends.
Wow.
Amazing. And this is like the 2 hench people. And we've got actors of this caliber playing that. Then we go to Tress MacNeille, who plays Dr. Margaret Madsen, and this one just blew my mind. Babs Bunny in the Tiny Toon Adventures, Daisy Duck from 1999 to present in every Disney production.
Every.
That
includes like the weird like preschool stuff that's on wow.
Wilma Flintstone in every Flintstones production 2000 to present.
Wow.
And this is the one that's going to kill you. Tress MacNeille, Dr. Margaret Madsen, bit part in Batman the Animated Series, is also Dot from the Animaniacs.
No.
Yes.
Oh, brilliant.
Brilliant. Like I said, even the bit parts are like, what the hell? Andrea Romano, you legend. And now we come to Mr. Jack Ryder, which is why this guy cannot possibly just appear in this episode. This is acting royalty. This is like a voice actor's voice actor. Guy called Jeff Glenn Bennett. Where do I even start? Clay in Shaolin Showdown.
Oh, wow. Good start.
Joker in The Brave and the Bold.
Okay, nice.
Red Tornado in Young Justice. He's won the Annie Award in 2012 for Outstanding Individual Achievement in Voice Acting for roles such as Zazu's singing voice in all the Lion King productions. So, though that was not Rowan Atkinson. He won an Emmy for playing a character called Maya Lusky, in Transformers Rescue Bots. It's a series of Transformers I don't think I've ever seen.
It was geared towards younger viewers.
Well, he actually won an Emmy for that part, so it must be a recurring character. And that is the tip of the iceberg. James Bond Jr., Kowalski the Evil Penguin in the Madagascar movies. Freakazoid, Land Before Time, Biker Mice from Mars. He's Dexter's dad in Dexter's Laboratory. But this is the pinnacle. This is the one where I'm thinking, hang on, whoa. Every voice I've mentioned is about as far from every other voice I've mentioned as you could possibly imagine. This dude, Mr. Jeff Glenn Bennett, I salute you. This is Johnny Bravo.
No. Yes. Oh, this is so brilliant. And he was in there for like, what, 7 seconds? Are you kidding?
That's amazing. And that resume is like...
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Wow.
That is like, as voice actors go, I mean, that wasn't everything. If I was to sit here, we'd have an episode about this one actor. It's unreal. So please let them bring Jack Ryder back and let me hear his interpretation of
Creeper,
because
that makes sense that they would get an actor like this, because someone with that kind of range and someone with that kind of talent to be able to do the mild-mannered reporter into the twisted, slightly sadistic but still well-meaning anti-hero. Yeah, that's inspired.
Well, the fact he's cast as the Joker in the Batman Brave and the Bold means that he's got to be able to perform that, and maybe he got that job out of this.
No, because like I remember Brave and the Bold. Because, like, in the first episode, the first appearance of the Joker is from that 2-part Elseworld story, where we also see the Injustice Syndicate, and the Joker was like a heroic version of Red Hood, trying to bring down that force. And it was definitely the same voice actor and the same voice and tone, but there was just so much more levity and heroism and just, like, general well-meaning to that version of Red Hood, whilst the Joker was just doing Joker things, but in a lighter, more kid-friendly sort of way. So yeah, that kind of acting talent is definitely what you'd want from a character as layered and as difficult as Creeper. So yeah, I would love to see this. I hope we see this actor playing this character sometime in the series.
Definitely cannot wait. And so that's it. Batman saves the day, but I need your thoughts on that end scene where Batman manages to... Well, Freeze's plan is to drop a bomb on Gotham City, which is like a reverse fusion, which is just like genius comic book nonsense. I love it. And he manages to get him to crash into the river instead. And so we have a giant iceberg floating in the middle of Gotham Harbor with Mr. Freeze's armor in it. The head is definitely not there, right?
No. That they did that in a way that, to quote one of our other favorite shows, remember when during David Tennant's era of Doctor Who when the Master's Ring fell out of the pyre so that we knew that he'd be back. This is another way of showing that you can't keep a good villain down. They'll be back eventually.
Oh no, why did you say he'll be back? That just reminded me of Arnie as Mr. Freeze in Batman.
Why would you remind me of Arnold? Come on. You're doing so well here.
You did it. It's your fault. I'm blaming you. That's it. So yeah, again, 3 episodes in, we're 3 for 3, I think. Great show.
As it has been, and I'm sure it will continue to be.
Yeah, so all my fears are rapidly dissipating. I thought maybe the change in animation style, the simpler drawings would lead to a simpler. I was just dreading that this would be like Teen Titans Go to Teen Titans, and thank goodness so far it really isn't. It's all the levels of excellence we've come to expect from this show, so I'm very, very happy indeed.
Yeah, I've seen a lot of video essays recently that have sort of defended Teen Titans Go for being a very different take, and despite its very childlike look, apparently it has a lot of very well-seeded in-jokes for the grown-ups.
I've heard that.
So I may revisit it, but then again, that's comparing Teen Titans Go to this show is like comparing like medium well fillet steak to chicken nuggets.
Yeah, valid. Well
sometimes one's satisfying, but one's an award-winning player food.
There you go.
Yeah.
So that's it. That's Cold Comfort, episode 3 of season 3 of Batman the Animated Series, written by the brilliant Hilary J. Bader and directed by Dan Reber. But Adam, let's tell the world what you're writing, directing, and appearing in across the interwebs of the universe.
For many things there are out there, and to find them, look no further. For Batman flavored written work, look no further than Dark Knight News, where I review multiple titles a month. Both Catwoman and Batman Joker Deadly Duo are in excellent spots right now. But for my one true love, PC and tabletop gaming, look to our pride and joy, fantasticuniverses.com, where I give my 2 cents on digital card gaming, in-paper card gaming, gacha gaming, board games, and everything in between, whatever else takes my fancy that involves slinging cards or rolling dice. Look to Storyteller's Forge, where you'll find me giving my own 2 cents on various issues that can level up your TTRPG experience. Follow me on Twitter as @isittinkerer. And to hear my dulcet tones, you can hear me on this show, I Am the Night, as well as my own podcast hosted through Fantastic Universes, Fantastic Plays, where a friend, a special guest, and I talk about our favorite things, PC, console, tabletop, or anything in the world of gaming. And look very soon to Misguided League, a new Dungeons and Dragons Let's Play show where some adventurers and I will be looking to traverse a new setting that I've created for Dungeons & Dragons, or really any tabletop role-playing game experience, to help promote First Gate, the Menagerie of Madness, the new supplemental book I'm writing alongside John of Biscuit Tin RPG.
Marvellous. D&D, how I love thee. As for me, yes, this show, I Am the Night, which is part of the DC Comics News Podcast Network. Catch us on Google, Stitcher, Spotify, Apple, everywhere you find podcasts. That's where you will find us. DC Comics News and Dark Knight News you can catch all across social media, Facebook, Twitter, Tumblr, and YouTube. And you can do so by searching DC Comics News or Dark Knight News on Twitter at DC Comics News at DKNewsCom. As for me, just type Steve, J, Ray, or Fantastic Universes to take you across my features, news, reviews, and interviews all across those 3 wonderful websites, Fantastic Universes, Dark Knight News, and of course, DC Comics News, or talk to me directly on Twitter at EL_STEEVO. But until you do, there are things you need to know and things you need to do.
I am the night.
We are the night.
And this has been the I Am the Night podcast. Thank you for listening. And until next time,
read
more
comics
and watch
more
Batman.
Batman.
Wahaha.